Namaskar, greetings everyone. Let us continue our study of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, and we start with a prayer. This prayer is from Devi Mahatmyam or Chandi on page 142 of the book Universal Prayers. The first one, the top one on the page 142 of Universal Prayers. Let me chant. Om Vidya Samastas Devi Bheda Striyas Samasta Sakala Jagatsu Tvayikaya Puritamam Bhayetat Kate Stutishtavya Para Paroktihi. O Divine Mother, all sciences and knowledge come from you, and all women in this world are manifestations of yourself. By you alone, O Mother, this universe is pervaded. How can we ever praise your infinite glories? You are beyond the reach of the highest praise. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace. Peace be within us all. Peace and harmony amongst all beings. And peace be everywhere in nature. We have one verse remaining in chapter 8, the last one. We will study that, and then we will go over a few important verses in chapter 8, and we will try to begin, start chapter 9. Sri Krishna was describing in verses 23 to 27 two paths available to human beings to travel. The one path is the path of light, described as Shukla Paksha, then Shukla Paksha, then Agni, Jyoti, Uttarayana, all those things. We don't want to worry about the details. The path of light. By traveling on this path of light, a person reaches the ultimate goal and merges in Brahman. That means reaches liberation, becomes free from the cycle of birth and death by traveling along the path of light. By traveling along the dark path, Krishna, Dhuma, etc., Dakshinayana, etc., a person will have to come back to this world to complete this journey. Spiritual journey is not complete. So what is the path of light? What is the path of darkness? That means, path of light means the path leading to God realization, spiritual path. The path of nivritti, path of detachment, devotion, knowledge. That is the path you have to follow. That is the path of light. The path of darkness means getting deeply involved in worldly attachments, seeking sense pleasures, seeking fame, seeking all kinds of happiness from the world, sense objects. So that is the path of darkness. that will not take us to the divine destination. We will have to come back. What happens to a person who travels along the path of darkness is, depending upon the karma that such a person has done, that person will stay in some loka, swarga or naraka or whatever. We are not interested in the details, to work out the karma, good and bad, and he will be born again in some birth. It may be human birth, may not even be a human birth, depends upon what kind of karma that person has done. In this world, some people are human beings only from the appearance, but their thoughts and actions are not human at all. So we don't want to think about that. It's not interesting to us. We are interested in the path of light. So those two paths were described. Now we come to the last verse, verse number 28. So let me chant verse number 28. Vedeshu yajneshu tapassu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti sadhyam. The translation is, the meritorious fruits of learning, the Vedas, of sacrifices, penances and gifts, charity, all these the yogin transcends by knowing this, and he also reaches the supreme primal state. By knowing this means the supreme reality, Brahman, which was described in several verses in this chapter. So what happens is, when a person performs these kind of practices, spiritual practices, they are all good. Veda means studying the Vedas and other scriptures. Not only Vedas, numerous other scriptures are there. By studying them, acquiring scriptural knowledge, scholarship, that is one thing people do. Yajna, performing sacrifices. Here yajna means kamya karma, sacrifices and all kinds of worship, ritualistic worship and other homa sacrifices, chanting mantras and everything. Satyanarayana Vrata, for example, they are all good. Worshipping God for any reason is good. But the motivation seems to be to gain something of a worldly nature. In the 7th chapter, verse number 16-17, we studied that people worship God for various reasons, with various motivations. Artha jignasu arthartha jnani. Chapter 7, verse 16-17, 18 also. So there are all different motivations. A person worships God, performs various kinds of sacrifices and austerities to become free from some problem. Arti. Arti means some suffering, some distress, any kind of problem is there. He prays to God to become free from it, seeking relief from suffering. Second person is Artharti. Artha can mean money, Artha can mean any object. Artha means any object that a person does not have and wants to have, hoping that if that missing thing is supplied, that person will become happier. So seeking something from God. It may be a job, it may be a visa, it may be a child, it may be a promotion, it may be a house or a spouse, whatever. Seeking something from God. Then third kind of person is a jignasu. Jignasu means one who seeks knowledge. Here, knowledge means knowledge of God. That is worthwhile seeking. O Lord, please reveal your true nature to me. Seeking knowledge of God. That is a worthwhile reason for worshipping God. Then the fourth person is Jnani, who does not seek anything. So that we saw in the 7th chapter. So yajna, of people performing all kinds of sacrifices and worship, they are also doing good thing. Study of scriptures, Veda, Yajna. Tapa means austerities of all kinds, going on pilgrimages, fasting, all those things or austerities, they do it. That is also good. That produces good result. Yajneshu, tapassu, daneshu. Dana means charity. In the later chapter 17, 18 chapter we will study 3 kinds of dana. Sattvic dana, rajasic dana, tamasic dana. We will come to that later. So giving charity, there is a way to give charity. Desha, kala, patra. 3 factors have to be kept in mind. Charity has to be given without expecting anything in return. If you give charity expecting something in return, then that is not really true giving. So we will study all of that later. Dana, people do charity. Daneshu, yat punya phalam pradishtam. Whatever punya, merit comes from these kind of activities, namely study of Vedas and other scriptures, performing yajna and other kinds of austerities, tapas and charity, etc. Whatever result comes from these kinds of activities, these are far inferior to what the jnani, person who seeks knowledge of Brahman, gets. Atyeti means transcends. These are all left behind. These are all transcended. How to transcend these things? How to get a bigger result? Param viditva. Adyam param viditva upaiti. Adyam sthanam upaiti. Param means supreme reality, Paramatma, Brahman. By knowing that, by gaining self-knowledge, a person transcends all the fruits of all other kinds of things. These are good to some extent. The result of studying the scriptures and do various kinds of austerities, yajnas, charity, pilgrimage, etc. These are all good, but they produce good result. But the result of knowing Brahman, Paramviditva, far exceeds the result of all these things. Atyete means transcends. So the highest goal should be to know the self, gain self-knowledge. These other things also are good, they produce good result. But this is the highest goal of human life. What is that Param has to be understood. That we have studied before, it will come again. What is that Paramviditva? Viditva means knowing that supreme reality. What is the supreme reality? Several verses came before. For example, here, verse number 20, 21, 22. This is the answer to the first question Arjuna asked at the beginning of this chapter. Arjuna asked how many questions? 7 questions at the beginning of chapter 8. The beginning of chapter 8. The first question was, Kim Tad Brahma? What is that Brahman? Then 5 more questions. Adhyatma, Adhibhota, Adhidaiva, Karma, all those things. And the last question was, how to think of you at the time of departure. Prayana kale pichakatam jneyosi madhusudana mugyayosi nimitatma bihi. How are you to be thought about at the time of prayana, means departure from this world. Those first and last questions are the key important questions. Sri Krishna answers them in much detail. The middle 5 questions are only definition of terms. We don't want to spend too much time on them. So what is that Param, Brahma, Kim Tad Brahma? First question. That is answered in this chapter. For example, verse number 20. We studied that in some detail. Here it says, Parastasmat bhava anyaha avyaktaha avyaktat sanatanaha avyaktat sanatanaha paraha tasmatu bhavaha Bhava means Supreme Reality Brahman. What is that one? Different from the Avyakta. Avyakta has two meanings. The word Avyakta comes again and again. In this chapter it has two meanings. First meaning of Avyakta is when Brahma the creator goes to sleep, a long day, 1,000 yugas, then all beings go into this state of Avyakta, unmanifest. They lose their name and form and remain in Avyakta state during Brahma's night. That is one Avyakta, everything going into unmanifest state when Brahma sleeps, Brahma the creator. Then when Brahma wakes up again after a long night, 1,000 yugas night, they all come back into Vyakta state, manifest state. They take name and form. That is one Avyakta, not that one. Avyaktat paraha, tasmat avyaktat paraha, sanatanaha avyaktaha, anyaha. A different Avyakta, which is Supreme Reality Brahman. That's also Avyakta, means no name and form, cannot be seen by sense organs. Avyakta means unmanifest, that means cannot be seen by sense organs or mind. It has no name and form. That's Avyakta. So that is Supreme Reality. Yasya, verse number 20 we are doing. Yasya sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. When all the other beings perish, going to Avyakta or perish, saha na vinashyati, Supreme Reality Brahman does not go. He is ever present, beyond time and space. That is Brahman. Answer to the first question, Kim Tat Brahma, verse number 20. Then 21, continuation of description of Brahman. Answer to Arjuna's first question. Avyakto-kshara ityuktastamahuh paramam gatim yam prapya nanivartante taddhama paramam mama. The unmanifest is said to be the imperishable, the Supreme Reality Brahman, which is also called Avyakta, unmanifest. That is imperishable. Akshara means imperishable. All other things perish, including Brahma also finishes his term and merges in Brahman. Not a permanent thing. And all the things from Brahma to the blade of grass, everything perishes. But Brahman only the imperishable. Akshara means imperishable. Avyaktaha, unmanifest, aksharaha, paramam gatim ahuhu. He is known as the supreme goal. All other goals of worldly life, like acquiring more money, living longer and having good health and beauty and family, children, those goals are all very short-term goals, not really worth striving for. Whatever comes, comes. We should be like that. Wise people don't strive after anchor for those things. Natesha ramate buddhaha, 522. So that is Supreme Reality Brahman. Yam prapya, by reaching that, nanivartante, people don't come back to this world of ignorance. People don't take rebirth. No more coming back to the domain of ignorance. Once you reach self-knowledge, that's permanent enlightenment. No more ignorance. No more think I am the body, I am the mind, I want this, I want that. Everything goes away. Taddhama paramamama, that is my supreme abode. So answer to the first question, Kim Tat Brahma. That we have to know. If we know that, the benefit of doing all other things like study of scriptures and pilgrimage and dana, charity, other things, they are far inferior to this benefit of knowing Brahman. The last verse we are doing. Then, one interesting thing comes in verse number 22. This Parabrahman can be reached by the path of devotion also, very important. The path of knowledge, the path of devotion, both lead to the knowledge of Brahman. That's in verse 22. Purushasya parapartha bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyantasthani bhutani yena sarvamidam tatam. This word, this phrase, yena sarvamidam tatam, by whom this whole universe is pervaded, comes again in some other place, 18th chapter. Saha Purushaha, O Partha or Arjuna, Ananyaya Bhaktya Labhyaha. That Supreme Reality, Paramapurusha, Brahman can be realized by pure devotion, Ananya Bhakti. Bhakti is of two kinds, not kinds but difference in degree you can say. Ordinary Bhakti is seeking something from God. Seeking freedom from suffering, seeking something that we don't have, seeking knowledge, all those things they are all devotion. Devotion of that type is also devotion, but that is not the highest kind of devotion because there is some seeking. God is used as a source to get something. God itself is not the ultimate goal. But for people with pure devotion, God Himself is the goal. There is nothing else they want from God. They want God only. That is pure devotion, Ananya Bhakti. Ananya means no other. Not seeking any other, only God. This is what Sri Ramakrishna taught us to seek. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. Seek only God, not other things from God. Wealth and name and fame and long life and all those things are not worthwhile seeking. Seek only God. Sri Ramakrishna gives, if you go to a rich man's house, we should try to see the rich man. We should not be satisfied by looking at his property, how many acres of garden he has, how many servants he has, how many rooms his big mansion has. Those are not the interesting things. We should see the person who owns all these things. God is the creator of the universe. We should seek God, not be interested in the universe, oh, so interesting this and that. That is achievable by pure devotion. Ananyaya bhaktya labhyaha. That Paramatman, self-knowledge can be acquired by practicing pure devotion. Pure devotion will come again in chapter 12. Yasyantastani bhutani. He in whom all beings are present. Yena sarvamidam tatam. By whom this whole universe is pervaded. So, knowing that Supreme Reality Brahman described in 20, 21, 22, that is the highest goal of life. Other things like studying the Vedas and performing yajnas and austerities and charity, etc., they are good. They produce good result. But the result of knowing Brahman far exceeds the result of all those other practices, activities. That is the last verse. Now, before we go to chapter 9, I want to point out about 4 or 5 verses in this chapter 8. The chapter 5, verse 5, 6, and 7, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 5, 6, 7, 9, and 13. Those I pointed out at the beginning of the chapter. 5, 6, 7, and 9 and 13. Yeah, those 4, 5 verses. Verse number 5. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah. Antakala means the time of last moment, time of departure from this world, from leaving this body. Antakale mameva smaran, remembering me alone. Smaranam means remembering God in any form, our Ishtadevata, whomever you have been worshipping all life, remembering that aspect of God. Mameva smaran, kalevaram muktva, giving up this body. Kalevaram means the body. Yaha prayati, that person who departs from this life, saha madbhavam yati, he reaches me. Madbhavam, my status, but he reaches God. If we think about God at the last moment, while before leaving the body, while leaving the body, then we go to God. If you think about world, property, money, possession, grandchildren, etc., then we get all those things in the next life also. So, to be able to think about God at all times, we should practice thinking about God from now on, all the time. So, next verse, verse number 6, it's a general statement. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. These few verses, 5, 6, 7, 13, are to be practiced from now onwards. That's why I am emphasizing them. It's something that we have to do, we can do, we have to do. We're not discussing the theory. We have to practice remembering God all the time from this moment onwards, so that we will be able to remember God at the last moment. So verse number 6, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha. When a person leaves the body, whatever object that person is thinking about, that very object that person reaches. O Arjuna, ever conforming to that being. Whatever you have been thinking most of the time, this is what we will be thinking at the time of death. And that's what we will reach. So we should be thinking about, if we want to reach God, we should be thinking about God at the time of death. To be able to do that, we should start practicing thinking about God from now onwards. That comes in the next verse, verse number 7. Very important verse to be practiced. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha mayyarpita mano buddhihi mame vaishyasi asamshayaha. Tasma, therefore, that means if you want to think about God at the last moment, sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara. The Lord is saying, remember me at all times. Yudhyacha, perform your duty. Yudhya means whatever is our duty this moment that we have to do. Arjuna's duty in the battlefield was to fight, not always. Our duty is to do whatever duty we have to do, that we have to do. We can't stop our duty saying, I am going to think about God. Yudhya also means fighting with the all negative emotion that we have, lust, anger, greed, pride, fear, etc. There's another battle that's constantly going on in our hearts all the time. That conflict is going on. So that is also a fight. Yudhya. Mayarpita mano buddhi, dedicating mind and buddhi. Mind means directing all the senses towards God. Hearing God's words, devotional singing, devotional music, God's glories, chanting God's names and devotional hymns, doing japa, meditation. Like that, directing all these 5 sense organs, including speech, to the divine. Speaking about God, hearing about God, seeing God's pictures and holy people, like that. Mayarpata mano buddhi. And buddhi means constantly discriminating God is the only worthwhile object, achieving worldly things as much as possible. They are not the ultimate goal. That kind of discrimination. Maya buddhihi asam mameva eshyasi. You will reach me alone. Asamshaya, no doubt. So last time when we were discussing this, I mentioned 2 people, Brother Lawrence and the Russian pilgrim. The Russian pilgrim constantly chanted the Jesus mantra. He got a Jesus mantra from a Christian monk. Jesus mantra is, Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. He was from a very poor peasant family, not much education, but he used to be really religious, going to church every Sunday, reading the Bible. Young man, wife had died and he didn't have any property, brother had driven him out, etc. And then when he was reading the Bible, he came across the sentence, pray unceasingly, in a letter written by St. Paul to the group of people called Thessalonians. Says in chapter 17, I think, verse 5, I think, it says, pray unceasingly, without stopping. So he wanted to know how to pray unceasingly. Then he approaches a Christian monk who used to live in a monastery and asks him to teach him how to pray unceasingly. That's what Sri Krishna says, Sarvesha Kaleshu Manismara. Same thing. How to remember God at all times? That was his question. His name is not given, we call him Pilgrim. He calls himself Pilgrim. Pilgrim because he was traveling to Constantinople to spend his last years there. Just as we go to Kashi to spend our last years, Christians, devout Christians go to Constantinople to spend their last years. So the Christian monks give him the mantra Diksha. Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. So this man keeps on repeating. First 2 weeks, 3,000 times a day, japa. 2 more weeks, 6,000 times a day. 2 more weeks, 12,000 times a day. That may occupy the whole day. Then the monk said, keep on repeating without no need to count, and that will do everything. You will get everything. So that man started repeating mantra constantly, non-stop. Then it became effortless. In the beginning, a lot of effort, but when he started repeating so many times, it became effortless. Constantly the mind was repeating on its own on autopilot. The mantra was going on, even when he was asleep. He used to walk from place to place. So that's the story of the pilgrim. This is all in a book called The Way of the Pilgrim, and the pilgrim continues the way. The Way of the Pilgrim, and the pilgrim continues the way. That is the name of the book. So that's how he did constant Sarvasya Kaleshu Manismara. That's how he did. But you can ask a question. That man didn't have any family, no job, and he didn't have to take care of any children, he didn't have to pay bills. He would just eat whatever came. But we can't be like that. Householders have to do all of other things. How can we remember God at all times? That question is answered in the life of Brother Lawrence. Briefly, this Brother Lawrence was a young man in Paris, in France somewhere. He joined the army. He didn't have much education. He joined the army, and in the army he was injured. His leg was injured, and he was discharged, and he became an unemployed veteran, and he was not finding any job. He was roaming here. So one day, when it was middle of winter in France, and he was walking, simply walking. No, there is no purpose, nothing. He saw everything was covered with snow. The trees had lost all their leaves. Trees were covered with snow. Houses were covered with snow. Carriages were covered with snow. This is 16th, 17th century. Roads were covered with snow. White sheet covering everything. Then this young man, his name was Nicholas Herman. Nicholas Herman was his name. So Nicholas thinks this is God's creation. Everything is now covered with snow. When spring comes, the snow melts, warmth comes, all the birds which have gone away will come back chirping. The trees will gain their leaves back, and the flowers will bloom, warmth will come, sun will shine. Then again spring, very pleasant time, and then that passes and summer comes, hot weather. Then again fall, autumn season comes, trees fall. Then again winter comes. He thinks like this. This is going on for millennia from beginning of creation. So there must be a power behind this thing. This is called Anumana. Whole of nature is functioning so beautifully like clockwork for a long time. So there must be a power, unseen hidden power behind this, making all this possible. So that's what they call God. In the meantime, one of his relatives had joined a monastery. So he got the idea that he should join a monastery. So the Nicholas Herman. So he goes to a Carmelite monastery and joins there. His leg was injured. He was not able to stand for a long periods of time. And then he was given the kitchen work in the monastery. His job was to cook and clean and serve the other monks. This is a monastery where many monks were living. So he starts working there. And he had not much education and didn't have any access to scripture study, didn't even have time to go to all the prayer meetings. Christians have several times a day, they meet together in the prayer hall, chapel, congregation for prayer, group prayer. 5 times or 7 times they meet in a day. Some of it he could not attend because he had to work in the kitchen, so much work was there. And remember, those days there was no running water, there was no tap, there was no electricity, there was nothing. Now you turn on a switch and we have all the appliances in the kitchen, food processor and grinder and everything. There was no such thing there. Everything had to be done manually. So he was working very hard. When he was working hard in the kitchen, he didn't have any benefit of classes or study or anything. Somehow one idea occurred to him. The idea that occurred to him was, the work that I am doing is all worship of God. The people whom I am serving, they are all God themselves in that human form. So this work is my worship. No, this idea how he got, I don't know, because there is nothing much written about him. All we know is through the 16 letters he wrote to other people. Those letters were posthumously published. He didn't write them for publication. And a very short biography of 3 pages or so. That's all we know. So how we got the idea that all work is worship is not very clear, but that is what exactly Bhagavad Gita says. I often mentioned one verse in the Gita, chapter 18, verse 46. Many times I have mentioned that one. That one second line of that verse, 1846, is all that we have to know. If you practice that one idea, we don't have to study the whole Gita. Sri Ramakrishna said, you don't have to study the entire Gita, 700 slokas. Just take few verses and practice, you will get the goal, reach the goal. So that's how the idea he got the idea that doing all my worship, all my work as worship, that's how I worship God. So he got, by doing all work as worship, this is what Gita says in 1846. Second line is, Sakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. Sakarmana, by doing our own duty as archana, worship, human being achieves perfection, liberation. Whom are we worshipping? Kamabhyarcha, sakarmana tamabhyarcha. Tam means him. Whom? First line gives the answer. Yata pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam. He from whom the whole universe, all beings have emanated, have come, and by whom the whole universe is pervaded. By worshipping him, by doing our own activities, so karma, duty as worship, we reach perfection. How Brother Lawrence got this idea? There is no way, because he didn't have access to Bhagavad Gita or anything, absolutely. That's how he did. He got so much joy by doing his cooking, cleaning, serving as worship, that sometimes he could not even contain the joy, the happiness that he got by doing everything as worship. In the middle of this work, kitchen work, sometimes he would prostrate on the floor, thanking Lord, oh Lord, such a great joy to serve you through this activity. That's so much joy he got. Then what happened? His leg problem became more severe, and the authorities, monastery authorities, transferred him from the kitchen to the shoe repair shop. People want to do glamorous work, but Brother Lawrence didn't matter what work. Every work is worship of God. So he was sent to the shoe repair shop. What was his job there? When other monks who needed their shoes to be repaired, they would bring and put their shoes, and his job was to repair them, mend them, and give them back to him. Great joyfully he did. Who wears these shoes that I am repairing? The Lord himself, because as Bhagavad Gita says, all feet are God's feet, all hands are God's hands, all mouths are God's mouths. Whoever eats the food I prepare, God eats the mouth. Through all the mouths, God himself eats the food. That's how he was thinking when he was in the kitchen. Whoever eats the food that he was preparing, other monks, who eats them? Same Vaishvanara in all the bodies. Aham Vaishvanaro bhutva pranina amdeham ashritaha. 15th chapter, verse number 14, I think. Whoever eats the food that cook prepares, the Lord himself eats, because all mouths are God's mouths. Whoever wears the shoes that he repairs, Lord himself wears the shoes, because all feet are God's feet. Where do we see this one? 13:13 in the Gita. How did he get it? I don't know. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshi shiro mukham sarvatah shrutimal loke sarvam avritya tishtati. Sarvatah pani, all hands are God's hands. All feet are God's feet. Padam. Sarvatah pani padam. Sarvatah akshi. All eyes are God's. So whomever we see, whoever sees you, the Lord is seeing you through all the pairs of eyes. Sarvatah akshi shiro mukham. All heads are God's heads. All faces are God's faces. Sarvata srutimat. All ears are God's ears. Whoever hears whatever you are saying, the Lord himself is hearing through all the pairs of ears. Loke sarvamavritya tishtati. In this whole universe, Lord is present, pervading everything. So he thought, what the shoes that he repairs, whoever wears the shoes, other monk, the Lord himself is wearing the shoes, because all feet are God's feet. That's how we practice the presence of God. By doing all our work as worship. We can all do that. We don't have to change the work. We don't have to give up the work. It can be household work, taking care of children, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, vacuuming the floor. It can be treating patients in the hospital or a clinic. It can be teaching students in the classroom. It can be working in the bank as a teller or a manager. It can be one can be working as a janitor in a building. What is cleaning the janitor? The whole building. Who lives in that building? The Lord himself is cleaning his place. Any work can be done as worship and should be done as worship. That is what 1846 says in the Gita. By doing that alone, like as Brother Lawrence did, doesn't matter what kind of work, one can reach perfection. Again in chapter 18, verse 10, Sri Krishna says, what kind of work you do is immaterial. How you do is what really matters. Chapter 18, verse 10, Sri Krishna says, Nadveshti akushalam karma kushalena anushajjate tyagi satta samavishto medhavi chinna samshayaha. 18:10. Akushalam karma nadveshti. Akushalam karma means unpleasant work, like cleaning, etc. Working in the construction job at night or in snow, or unpleasant work. Nadveshti, a devotee does not hate that kind of unpleasant work. Kushale karmani, if the work is pleasant, brings visibility and people say thank you and reward and everything, nanusajjate, a person does not become attached to that kind of work. Whatever kind of work comes, that I do as worship of God. That is the attitude of a yogi, a devotee. That's what Brother Lawrence did. So the story of Brother Lawrence is, you can read in a small book called Practice of the Presence of God. Practice of the Presence of God. That's the title of the book. Swami Chidbaramanji taught this book in the morning classes some time ago, maybe last year before here. Some of you may have attended his classes. That is how to remember God at all times. So coming back to verse, we are doing verse number 7. Tasma sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha. Two things we have to do. We have to always remember God and we have to do our duty, both. That one line is a key line to be practiced by all of us. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha. I am pointing out key verses in chapter 8. Now, whom are we worshipping? We should have some idea. We all have our chosen ideals, Ishta Devata. We worship that. In whatever aspect of God we want to worship, that we have chosen to worship, or given by the Guru, that we worship. But that Lord is Brahman itself in that form. That is explained in verse number 9. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyan Samanusmaredyaha Sarvasya Dhataramachintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat. Whoever remembers Yaha Anusmaret, is the word Anusmaret, Yaha at the end of the first line, Yaha Anusmaret, he who remembers, he or she who remembers Kavim, whom? The Lord, Supreme Lord. Who is the Supreme Lord? Kavim. Kavim means Sarvagnya, one who knows everything. Kavi also means a poet. Kavi also means one who knows everything. Supreme, omniscient. That is Supreme Lord. Sarvagnya. Puranam means timeless, ageless, ancient. Anushasitaram, ruler. Anushasana means ruling, administration. He administers the whole universe. Anushasitaram. Anoraniyan. Anu means an atom, very small thing. Anovaniyan, smaller than the smallest, subtler than the subtlest. Sukshmat sukshmataram. Nothing more subtler than that one. Yaha anusmaret, one who remembers. Sarvasya dhataram, one who upholds, protects everything, all beings. Achintya rupam, whose form cannot be imagined or visualized, formless. Avyaktam, achintya rupam. Aditya varnam, effulgence like the sun, brightness like the sun. That means enlightens, illumines everything. Aditya varnam means because of the effulgence of God, Brahman, the whole universe is illumined. Everything functions by his power. So that Aditya varnam tamasah parastat, beyond the domain of ignorance. No sattva, no rajas, no tamas, no ignorance. Pure knowledge, pure consciousness. That is the Lord whom you have to remember. Yaha sarvesha kaleshu mamanusmara. Whom should we remember at all time? The Supreme Lord, who is all this, described in this way here. Then one more verse. Before we leave this chapter, verse number 13. Omityeka aksharam brahma vyaharan mamanusmaran yah prayati tyajan deham sayate paramam gatim. Pronouncing the monosyllable Om, representing Brahman, and remembering me means Supreme Lord. Whoever goes forth leaving this body he proceeds to the highest goal. We should try to chant our mantra at the end of our lives by practicing chanting every day. We should try to keep our mantra in our mind when we are very sick on the bed. When the end comes, we don't know. But as long as consciousness exists, as long as we are aware, we should chant the mantra. Many people are aware and then they conscious. When they are conscious, they leave the body. But many people are not aware. They lose their awareness a few days or some time before the death comes. Whatever is the last thought in our mind, as long as we are aware, we should keep the mantra in the mind. When the awareness goes, then we have no control. There may be some at deeper level, some awareness, we don't know that one. So as long as we are aware, at the last moment, we have to chant the mantra. Om is contained in all the mantras, or only Om can be chanted. Om ityekaksharam Brahma. But better to chant the mantra that is given to us by the Guru. That always contains the Om. So this way we have to leave the body. So these are the things to be practiced that are important key verses in chapter 8. We just begin the chapter 9, 1 or 2 verses if we can do, then we'll continue next time. Chapter 9 is called Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga. Raja means king. Rajavidya means the king of all knowledge. So many branches of knowledge are there. All the social sciences and science and technology, humanities and everything, innumerable branches of knowledge. Of all those branches of knowledge, Rajavidya means the king of them. That means knowledge of the self, knowledge of God. Earlier we saw there are 2 branches of knowledge. Paravidya, Aparavidya. This is Paravidya. Aparavidya means knowledge of the world. Everything from astronomy to zoology. We study outside objects. But Paravidya means knowledge of the self, supreme reality. So this Rajavidya means that knowledge of the supreme reality. In the commentary, Shankara says, Brahma Jnanam. Rajavidya means knowledge of Brahman, self-knowledge. Rajaguhya. Guhya means secret. Royal secret. Why this is called royal secret? It's all printed, available to everybody in all the languages. There is no secret about it. Anybody can buy a copy of the Gita book. Nothing is hidden from anyone. Still it remains a mystery to those who are not prepared, who are not interested. Guhya means mystery, hidden. He may read the Gita, but nothing may enter our head unless we are prepared and we are deeply interested. Deep interest is a requirement to acquire knowledge. Deep interest in the knowledge, we should really love to gain that knowledge. That strong urge must be there to know that one. And we must have devotion to the Guru. Then only we can understand something. So otherwise it remains a mystery. Supposing I attend a graduate's class in quantum mechanics. This professor is speaking in English. I understand English, but he has already solved those equations. But I don't understand nothing because I don't have the preparation. I don't know even pre-calculus or calculus 1. But if you attend quantum mechanics class, what can I understand? Nothing. So Gita is like that, Vedanta is like that. Unless you have the preparation, the mind is prepared, willing, able, eager to learn, knowledge will not come. It remains a mystery. Rajaguhyam means that one. So this knowledge that he is going to impart, he has been imparting all the 8 chapters throughout the Gita that's going to be taught in chapter 9. Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga. So let's do verse number 1. So let us chant verse number 1. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyam yanasuyave jnanam yajnana sahitam Yajñātvā mokṣyase ashubhat. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Lord says, here Arjuna is not asking any question. Even without Arjuna asking any question, Sri Krishna continues his teaching. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Lord Bhagavan said, Idam te means to you, to Arjuna. Idam guhyatamam jnanam. Jnanam is first word in the second line. Vijnana sahitam. Jnana means knowledge. Idam jnana means, in the commentary Shankara says, Brahma jnanam, knowledge of Brahman, self-knowledge. Idam jnanam guhyatamam, most mysterious. Guhya means mysterious. Guhyatamam te anasuyave. Asuya means jealousy, complaining. Anusuyave, te means to you who has no jealousy. He praises Arjuna. Jealousy is a very negative quality. Arjuna was not jealous. So, Sri Krishna points out that, oh, anasuyave, to you, idam jnanam guhyatamam jnanam, this most mysterious knowledge, pravakshyami, I am going to explain in detail. Pravakshyami. Along with vijnana sahitam, along with vijnana. Jnana means knowledge. Vijnana means experience. Shankara says, anubhava yuktam, along with experience. Jnana is not sufficient. Jnana is necessary but not sufficient. Vijnana is necessary. Experience is necessary. Vijnana sahitam yat jnatva, by knowing which ashubhat mokshase. Mokshase means you will become free from ashubha. Ashubha means inauspicious. What is inauspicious? Shankara says samsara bandhanat. Bandhana means bondage. Samsara means the worldly life, birth and death. By knowing this knowledge that Sri Krishna is going to impart in this chapter, along with experience, jnanam vijnana sahitam, jnatva, by knowing this one, what happens, what is the benefit? Ashubhat mokshase, you will become free from inauspicious evil. What is that ashubha? Samsara bandhana. You will become free from the cycle of birth and death. You will achieve liberation. That is the introduction to what is going to teach. Jnana vijnana, both are going to be taught. What is jnana vijnana? Sri Ramakrishna has explained the difference between jnana vijnana in a very simple way. If a person knows that milk is a nutritious food, and if you drink milk you will get good health, if a person has a knowledge, then yes, jnana, he has the knowledge, but no experience. Another person who has actually taken milk every day for a long time and has acquired good health, he has experience, he is a vijnani, he has vijnana. Both are necessary. Jnana is necessary but not sufficient. Vijnana is also necessary. Both are going to be explained in this chapter 9. By knowing this, what's the benefit? Ashubhat mokshase, you will become free from all evil. Evil means cycle of birth and death, samsara bandhana, transmigratory life cycle. That is the first verse. So we will stop here. Next time we shall continue. If you have any questions, please let me know. Let me say the closing prayer. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om, may all be happy, may all be free from afflictions, diseases and other problems. May all realize and practice what is noble and dharmic. May no one be subject to misery. May there be no ill will among beings. May there be harmony in everybody's life. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. Or may there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Daivika Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all and stay well. God willing, we will meet next week.